At 3:47 a.m., every executive phone at Consolidated Trust Bank screamed with the same alert. Their entire secure data portal was dead. 15 years of custom infrastructure gone. The CEO was on his phone, voice cracking. The CTO pulled up system logs showing nothing but cascading failures. Their overnight team was in full panic mode, frantically typing commands that did absolutely nothing. And me. I was asleep in my apartment across town, phone on silent, sleeping better than I had in 18 months. Because 24 hours earlier, I'd walked out of that bank carrying a small box of personal items and something far more valuable. Every ounce of institutional knowledge that kept their systems breathing. They had the code. They had the documentation. But here's what they didn't have the understanding. And in infrastructure architecture, that's the difference between a functioning bank and a digital graveyard. The CTO had made that crystal clear when he stood in front of 87 people and called me a replaceable code monkey. 15 years of building their entire technical foundation reduced to 6 words. I'd smiled at him and said 4 words back. Good luck configuring it. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where we share stories about what happens when loyalty meets disrespect and people finally realize their worth. We're building a community of people who believe respect flows both ways in the workplace. And we're heading towards 6,000 subscribers who understand that some things aren't as replaceable as management thinks. Subscribe if that resonates with you. My name is Margaret Holloway. For 15 years, I was the senior infrastructure architect at Consolidated Trust Bank, not just a programmer, not just a developer. I was the person who built every critical system they ran on. Before any of that mattered, I grew up watching my father fix neighbors' cars for free in our driveway and my mother teach piano to kids whose families couldn't pay. I learned something early: empathy matters. When you understand that real people depend on what you build it differently. That's how I approached every line of code. Behind every authentication protocol was a single mother checking her balance at midnight. Behind every transaction system was a small business owner making payroll. Behind every security layer was an elderly couple protecting their retirement savings. I joined Consolidated Trust Bank in 2009, right when the financial crisis had banks on life support and customer trust at zero. They were desperate for someone who could build bulletproof systems. I was 28, hungry, and ready to prove myself. What I found was a nightmare. Their infrastructure was legacy systems held together with hope and duct tape. Security holes everywhere. Processing speeds from the dial-up era. They gave me 6 months to rebuild everything without a single minute of downtime. Most people would have run. I got to work. 16-hour days. Living on coffee and the satisfaction of watching clean code compile perfectly. I rebuilt their authentication from scratch, redesigned the entire database architecture, created redundancy systems so sophisticated that servers could fail and customers would never know. But here's what made it special. I built in what I called cascade protection. Every major system had 3 layers of failsafes. If the primary authentication server went down, a secondary would activate within milliseconds. If that failed, a tertiary system would engage, all invisible to the end user. I even programmed the systems to send me encrypted alerts about potential failures before they became actual problems. I'd get a notification on my phone, fix the issue remotely, and nobody would ever know we'd been 30 minutes from catastrophe. 4 months later, we went live. 0 downtime. 0 complaints. Transaction speeds up 300%. Security auditors called it the tightest banking infrastructure they'd ever tested. The CEO, Arnold Richardson, shook my hand and told me I'd saved the company. My salary doubled, but what mattered was that I'd built something I was genuinely proud of. Over the next 15 years, I made that infrastructure legendary. I integrated mobile banking before most banks understood what a smartphone was. I built fraud detection algorithms that saved them $17 million in the first year alone, catching patterns human analysts missed. The system analyzed transaction behaviors in real time, flagging anomalies within seconds. When a retired teacher in Ohio had her card number stolen, my system blocked the fraudulent charges before they even processed. She never knew her information had been compromised because the system handled it automatically. I created customer data protection systems that became the industry standard. Other banks literally studied our security architecture in their training programs. Recruiters called constantly. Bigger salaries, better titles, relocation packages to New York and San Francisco. I always said no. Consolidated Trust was my home. I'd built every critical line of code they ran on. I knew every system intimately. Then the executives changed. Arnold retired. New leadership arrived from investment banking, people who saw technology as an expense instead of the foundation. The culture shifted hard. Collaboration got replaced with hierarchy worship. Meetings multiplied. Actual work time vanished. But I adapted. I kept the systems running flawlessly. Our uptime was legendary, 99.97% over a decade. While competitors dealt with outages and furious customers, ours could access accounts anytime, anywhere. Then 18 months ago, they hired Nathan Cross as CTO. Nathan came from a social media company where he'd been middle management. His technical knowledge was surface level. His ego was not. First meeting, Nathan made his agenda clear. Everything I'd built was outdated. He needed to modernize, which meant he needed visible projects to justify his salary. Never mind that our systems outperformed everyone. Never mind our spotless security record. He brought in a consulting firm. Kids fresh from coding boot camps, excited about frameworks they'd learned 6 months ago. Their assessment? Recommend a complete overhaul. Migrate everything to whatever was trendy. Timeline, 3 years. Cost, $40 million. I wrote a detailed response explaining why their recommendations would decrease performance and increase vulnerabilities. I showed how we could incrementally update for a fraction of the cost while maintaining stability. Nathan called me into his office the next morning. The glass walls meant everyone could see us, but not here. He was standing when I entered, clearly trying to establish dominance. "Margaret, this pushback needs to stop. You're undermining my authority." "I'm providing technical analysis," I replied calmly. "The migration plan has serious flaws." Nathan's face reddened. "Your analysis is biased. You're protecting your legacy code because you're afraid of change." "I'm protecting 15 years of proven performance. Our systems work better than our competitors. Why break what isn't broken?" "Because this is 2023, not 2009, he snapped. "You built decent systems for their time, but technology moves forward. You can either move with it or get left behind." I kept my voice level. "Nathan, the consulting firm missed critical dependencies. If we migrate the authentication system without updating the API calls first, we'll have cascading failures. It's not about old versus new, it's about understanding how these systems interconnect." He leaned back in his chair, a condescending smile spreading across his face. "Margaret, you've been here so long you think you're irreplaceable. You're not. I could hire 3 developers for your salary who understand modern architecture better than you do." The insult hung in the air. Through the glass walls, I could see other team members pretending not to watch our heated discussion. "Is that a threat?" I asked quietly. "It's reality. This migration is happening whether you support it or not. Get on board or find somewhere else that appreciates your vintage expertise." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Nathan, when this migration fails, and it will, remember this conversation." Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan became openly hostile. He excluded me from planning meetings I'd run for years. He reassigned my team members to his pet projects. In the daily stand-up meetings, he'd interrupt my technical updates with dismissive comments. "Margaret's being overly cautious again," he'd say with a theatrical eye roll. "We need to think bigger, move faster." The breaking point came during a meeting with the senior VP of operations, Linda Martinez. We were discussing the timeline for the mobile app updates, a project I'd managed successfully for 8 years. "The mobile authentication needs to sync with the new API before we push any updates," I explained. "Otherwise, customers won't be able to log in." Nathan cut me off. "That's exactly the kind of outdated thinking that's holding us back. The new authentication protocol handles backwards compatibility automatically." "No, it doesn't," I said firmly. "I've read the documentation. The API endpoints are completely different. We need transition logic or—" "Margaret," Nathan's voice boomed across the conference room. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so stuck in your old ways that you can't see obvious solutions. Maybe it's time to let people who understand modern development take the lead. Linda looked uncomfortable. Nathan, Margaret has managed mobile development successfully for years. Her track record speaks for itself. Her track record is maintaining old systems, Nathan shot back. We need innovation, not maintenance. Margaret, maybe it's time you considered a role more suited to your skill level. Documentation specialist, perhaps, or system monitoring. The room went dead silent. He was publicly demoting me to entry-level positions. My face burned with humiliation and rage. My skill level built everything you're trying to replace, I said quietly, and when your migration fails, you'll understand why. Nathan's smile was cold. If you're so confident it will fail, maybe you should put your money where your mouth is. Stay and watch it succeed, or leave and miss the transformation. Nathan dismissed my response in a company-wide email, said my thinking was outdated, that I was resistant to innovation, that I was clinging to legacy approaches while the industry moved forward. The disrespect was public and deliberate. Colleagues avoided eye contact. My opinions got ignored. Projects I'd led for years got reassigned to Nathan's new hires. I requested a private meeting, stayed professional, explained my concerns purely from a technical standpoint. Nathan leaned back, hands behind his head. You need to accept your way of doing things is over. The bank is moving into the modern era with or without you. Developers are abundant and cheap. Your experience doesn't create the leverage you think it does. Over the next months, my role got systematically dismantled. Responsibilities stripped, projects canceled, team reassigned. Nathan was forcing me out without firing me. I watched his team modify systems they didn't understand. Small changes that revealed fundamental misunderstanding of the architecture. I flagged issues, got ignored. Then one day, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of Nathan's developers had modified the cascade protection system I'd built. They'd simplified it, calling my 3-layer approach redundant and inefficient. They'd reduced it to a single failsafe. I immediately wrote an incident report explaining that this removed our safety net, that if the primary system failed now, we had no backup. Nathan's response email was dismissive. Modern cloud architecture doesn't require outdated redundancy protocols. I printed that email and filed it in my personal records. Then came the meeting that ended everything. Nathan assembled the entire technology department. Big announcement. He'd negotiated a partnership with a major cloud provider. Complete migration. Timeline, 8 months, I raised my hand. What about data security during migration? What about the system dependencies? The authentication protocols hard-coded into 17 different subsystems. Nathan's face flushed red. He cut me off mid-question. Margaret, you're acting like you're irreplaceable. You're not. You're just a code monkey who's been here too long. We have dozens of developers who can do what you do. This migration is happening. Get on board or get out of the way. The room went silent, 87 people holding their breath. I stood there processing. 15 years of excellence, dedication, innovation, reduced to just a code monkey. Then I smiled, the kind of smile that comes when everything becomes perfectly clear. Good luck configuring it. I walked straight to my office, typed my resignation, effective immediately. Copied HR, Nathan, and the CEO, no explanations, no grievances, just, I'm resigning and will not be available for transition assistance. Packed my things, walked out. Before I left the building, I did one final thing. I logged into my admin account and changed my password to something nobody would ever guess. Then I enabled 2-factor authentication tied to my personal phone. I didn't delete anything, didn't sabotage anything, didn't touch a single line of code, but I did lock the administrative account that had override access to every system configuration, the account that could manually reboot the cascade protection, the account that could bypass the authentication sequences during updates. That account was now inaccessible. They'd figure it out eventually. They had root access to everything, but it would take time. And in complex infrastructure, time is everything. My phone started ringing before I reached the parking lot. I let every call go to voicemail. At home, I opened my laptop. 3 recruiter emails waiting. One from Vertex Finance. a smaller competitor that had tried hiring me twice before. Their CEO, Catherine Wu, was a former programmer who understood that technology wasn't support, it was the core business. I sent Catherine a brief email. My status had changed. I was exploring opportunities. She responded in 20 minutes, tomorrow morning, breakfast meeting, her office. I arrived at 7 a.m. with a presentation. Nothing confidential, but enough to show what I could build. Architecture diagrams, performance metrics, security protocols. Catherine came with her CFO Thomas Palmer and head of technology Alan Yoshida. We talked for 3 hours. They asked intelligent questions. They actually understood the technical details. Alan was refreshingly honest. Our systems work, but they're not special. We're competitive but not leading. We need someone who can build what puts us ahead. Catherine asked the key question, how long to build what we need? I considered carefully. Starting from scratch with proper resources, 18 months for something exceptional. Catherine smiled. What if you weren't starting from scratch? If you brought proven frameworks and approaches? I understood what she was really asking. The code belonged to Consolidated Trust. But my knowledge, my architectural thinking, my methodologies, those belonged to me. 6 months to operational, another 6 to industry leading. Catherine extended her hand. When can you start? We negotiated fast. Salary up 20%. Equity stake, complete authority over technology. Title, Chief Technology Officer. I signed that afternoon. Start date, Monday. That weekend, I didn't just plan Vertex Finance's infrastructure. I thought about what I'd left behind. Here's something most people don't understand about complex systems. There's a concept in programming called dependency hell. It's when systems rely on other systems in ways that aren't obvious. Change one thing, and 17 other things break in ways you'd never predict. Documentation can list the dependencies, but without deep understanding, you're diffusing a bomb by reading the manual. My infrastructure at Consolidated Trust was a masterpiece of intentional dependencies. Each system optimized for their specific needs, secured in unconventional ways, structured for performance. Brilliant architecture. But it required intimate knowledge to maintain. I'd been that knowledge for 15 years. Every time something broke, I fixed it. Every update, I implemented it. Every integration, I managed it. I was the living manual. Nathan had just fired the manual. Monday morning at Vertex Finance was electric. Beautiful space. Enthusiastic team. Catherine introduced me to 30 people and made clear I had full authority and complete support. By Tuesday afternoon, I'd assembled my core team. 5 senior developers hungry to build something great. We mapped the infrastructure plan, modern frameworks where appropriate, custom solutions where needed, security as the foundation. I showed them something I'd never implemented at Consolidated Trust, a revolutionary approach to real-time data encryption. Instead of encrypting data at rest, we'd encrypt it during transmission using a rotating key system. Every transaction would generate a unique encryption key that expired after 30 seconds. Even if someone intercepted the data, it would be useless by the time they tried to decrypt it. My team was fascinated. One developer, a brilliant woman named Lisa Chen, immediately saw the implications. This would make us virtually immune to data breaches during transmission. Exactly. Wednesday, we started coding. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with Consolidated Trust calls. I ignored them all. Wednesday night, 3:47 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me check. James Kowalski, a developer from my old team. Good programmer. Decent person. Margaret, I'm so sorry to call. I know you don't owe us anything, but we're in full crisis. The entire secure data portal crashed an hour ago. Customer authentication is failing. Nobody can access accounts. Nathan has everyone here and we can't figure out what happened. Nothing was changed. I sat up. Nothing at all? Well, we pushed the security certificate renewal Monday. But that's automated. It's been working for years. The certificate renewal? Of course. Here's what had happened. The security certificates were set to auto-renew every 90 days. But the renewal process I designed required the cascade protection system to temporarily reroute authentication through the backup servers, while the primary servers updated their certificates. With Nathan's team having stripped out my 3-layer protection and reduced it to 1 layer, the renewal process had nowhere to reroute. The primary servers updated and went offline. The backup tried to activate but couldn't authenticate without the updated certificates. The whole thing created a loop that crashed the system. James, that renewal has a dependency chain. Certificates update, then 3 specific services restart in sequence. Not simultaneously in sequence. Database authentication first, wait 30 seconds, then API gateway, wait 30 seconds, then customer portal. It's in the documentation, section 12, subsection 4. Silence. Then quietly, I'll find it. Thank you, Margaret, seriously. But I knew finding the documentation wouldn't be enough. They'd need to manually override the authentication loop. And the only account with that authority was my old admin account, the one I'd locked. I hung up and couldn't sleep. Around 6 a.m., news showed Consolidated Trust Systems back online. Crisis handled. This time, I later learned they'd spent 4 hours trying to access my admin account before finally calling in an external security firm to create a new override account. Cost them $50,000 for emergency overnight service. At Vertex Finance that morning, Catherine called me in. She was reading her tablet, amused. Consolidated Trust had a major outage last night, 4 hours. Complete customer lockout. Stock dropped 2%. Social media is destroying them. She looked up. You wouldn't know anything about that? I kept my face neutral. I resigned last week. What happens there isn't my concern anymore. Her knowing smile said everything. Well, their loss is our gain. How's our build going? Over 3 weeks, we made incredible progress. Core authentication built. Database architecture set. Security protocols created. Everything clean, modern, and documented for team maintenance. But we also built something special. I implemented predictive load balancing, a system that analyzed user patterns and predicted traffic spikes before they happened. If our data showed that every 1st and 15th of the month had higher traffic due to paychecks, the system automatically allocated more server resources those days. It was like the infrastructure could think ahead. Consolidated Trust, meanwhile, was struggling. News of the outage spread. Customers were switching. Stock kept dropping. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Their mobile banking app died completely. Error messages for everyone. 9 hours of outage. 9 hours of fury. This time, I knew exactly what had happened. Nathan's team had pushed an update to the mobile app, but they hadn't updated the API endpoints. The app was trying to communicate with the servers using new protocols, but the servers were still expecting the old ones. Basic mistake. I'd prevented this exact issue for 15 years by maintaining a master compatibility checklist. Nathan had apparently discarded it as
left
outdated
a voicemail.
documentation. His cocky tone gone, replaced with stress. Margaret, it's Nathan. Look, I know we didn't part well. I'm calling to see if you'd consult with us. Temporarily, we're having technical difficulties. We'd pay whatever rate you want. Please call back. I deleted it. Catherine mentioned Consolidated Trust's CEO called her too, asking to loan out their new CTO for consulting. She'd politely declined, saying I was essential to current projects. The third outage came a month later. Catastrophic. Their entire transaction processing system failed. Not just customer access, actual processing. Payments didn't go through, transfers vanished, direct deposits disappeared, people's paychecks gone, bills unpaid, small businesses frozen. I found out later what caused it. Nathan's team had finally attempted the cloud migration. They'd moved the customer database to the new cloud servers. But they hadn't realized the transaction processing system had hard-coded IP addresses pointing to the old servers. When they shut down the old database servers to complete the migration, the transaction system couldn't find the data. Every transaction failed. I'd warned about exactly this in my initial response to their migration proposal. The one Nathan had publicly dismissed. News coverage was brutal. Federal regulators got involved. Class action lawyers circled. Stock in freefall. Everyone from Consolidated Trust called. Nathan, HR. Executives I'd never even met, all begging me to come back. I finally answered CEO Roger Hamilton. Margaret, I'll be direct. We made a terrible mistake. The way you were treated was unacceptable. I'm offering whatever it takes. Name your salary, your title, complete authority. Equity, whatever you want, I let him finish. Roger, I appreciate the call, but I'm not interested. I'm very happy at Vertex Finance. Margaret, please, we're in crisis. Customers leaving, regulators investigating, stock down 30%. You built our infrastructure, you know it better than anyone. You needed me when I was warning about risks, when I was flagging problems. You didn't listen. You let your CTO call me a replaceable code monkey in front of the entire department. Silence. I didn't know he said that. It wasn't just words, Roger. It was the culture that made him think those words were acceptable. I gave you 15 years of loyalty and excellence. You treated me like an interchangeable part. You have the documentation, you have the code. You said it was all replaceable, so replace it. I hung up. That evening, Catherine took the executive team to dinner. Celebration. We'd completed core infrastructure ahead of schedule. Testing showed it was faster and more secure than any competitor. Catherine raised her glass. To Margaret, who proved that technology isn't just code, it's architecture, artistry, and expertise. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Valued, respected. Home. Consolidated Trust's problems continued. Fourth outage. Fifth. Their infrastructure was degrading. Nathan's team fixed one problem, created two more. They were playing whack-a-mole with critical systems. Nathan got terminated. The consulting firm dismissed. Consolidated Trust desperately recruited infrastructure architects, but their reputation was toxic. Nobody wanted a sinking ship. 2 months after I left, the announcement came: Consolidated Trust Bank was being acquired. A larger conglomerate bought them at a fraction of their previous value. Shareholders furious. Executives fired. A major regional player absorbed, dismantled, erased. The acquiring bank brought their own technology team, ripped out all my infrastructure, replaced it with standardized systems. 15 years of work deleted. Part of me mourned that. I'd been proud of what I built. But infrastructure without respect is just code. And code is replaceable. Vertex Finance thrived. Our systems drew attention. Industry publications wrote features. Customers switched to us for speed, security, and reliability. Our rotating encryption key system became legendary. In our first year, we had zero, absolutely zero, successful data breaches. Other banks were losing millions to cybercriminals. We didn't lose a single dollar. Security firms requested meetings just to understand our approach. We won awards: Best Banking Technology, Most Innovative Infrastructure, Highest Customer Satisfaction. 6 months after I joined, our customer base grew 40%. Stock tripled. Catherine promoted me to Executive Vice President of Technology with a board seat. My equity stake became genuinely valuable. But more than money or title, I had purpose back. We built with customers in mind. Single parents, elderly folks, small business owners, real people whose lives worked better when technology worked right. We documented not just what our code did, but why. Cross-trained team members. Created a culture where questions were encouraged and expertise respected. A year after leaving Consolidated Trust, I keynoted a banking technology conference. Infrastructure architecture, security protocols, building systems that scale. In the audience, James Kowalski. After my presentation, he approached. That was brilliant, Margaret. I learned more in 40 minutes than 2 years of other sessions. Over coffee, he told me everything. The chaos after I left, the panic, desperate attempts to understand systems beyond their expertise, Nathan's firing, the acquisition, the dismantling. We tried, but you'd built something that required your level of expertise to maintain. Nathan thought programming was just typing code. He learned too late. What are you doing now? Infrastructure work for the acquiring bank. It's stable, but nothing special. I handed him my card. We're hiring experienced developers who want to build something special. Email me your resume if interested. His face lit up. Seriously, after everything? You were always a good programmer, James, and you treated people with respect. That matters. James joined Vertex Finance 2 months later. 3 other developers from my old team followed. Good people caught in Nathan's ego trip who wanted to do good work. Together, we built something remarkable. Infrastructure that became the industry benchmark. Security that government agencies studied. Performance competitors couldn't match. More importantly, we built culture, where expertise was valued. Loyalty ran both ways. where Code Monkey would get you fired, not applauded. 2 years after that conference room humiliation, I made the cover of a major tech publication. The Architect: How Margaret Holloway Built Banking's Best Infrastructure. The article detailed everything: consolidated trust years, dramatic departure, Vertex Finance success, Catherine's quotes about respecting technical expertise, metrics proving our superiority. And briefly, it mentioned what happened to Consolidated Trust: the outages, the collapse, the acquisition, a cautionary tale about dismissing expertise. Nathan moved to a small fintech startup. Individual contributor, no management responsibilities. His reputation followed him everywhere. Roger Hamilton retired early, forced out by the board before acquisition. Meanwhile, we were changing the industry. We open-sourced some security protocols. Other banks adopted them. The entire industry's security improved because we shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. We started a mentorship program, training young developers properly. Not bootcamp surface knowledge, deep infrastructure understanding, teaching technical skills and professional values. Students reached out constantly. How do you handle disrespect? When do you leave versus stay? My answer stayed consistent: know your worth. Build excellent work. Demand respect. Understand that loyalty must be bidirectional. Companies treating people as replaceable parts learn some parts are actually irreplaceable. 3 years after walking out, Vertex Finance was valued at $8 billion. My equity was worth more than my entire 15 years at Consolidated Trust. But money wasn't the victory. The victory was building excellence with people who valued it, creating infrastructure serving customers beautifully, mentoring the next generation, proving expertise, experience, and respect matter. Consolidated Trust no longer existed. Brand retired. Infrastructure deleted. 15 years of my work erased. But the knowledge I'd built, the expertise I'd developed, the approaches I'd mastered, those were never theirs, those belonged to me. And I took them to someone who understood their value. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if Nathan had shown basic respect, if he'd listened to my concerns, valued expertise over ego. Consolidated Trust would probably still exist, thriving, competitive, infrastructure incrementally updated while maintaining stability, everyone happy. Nathan would still be CTO, Roger still CEO. Those executives would have careers, but Nathan chose differently. He chose ego, chose to dismiss 15 years with 6 words. Those 6 words cost shareholders billions, cost thousands their jobs, cost customers their trust, cost executives their careers. Those same 6 words freed me to find somewhere my work was valued, to build something better. Margaret Holloway wasn't a replaceable code monkey. She was an architect who built competitive advantage through sophisticated infrastructure. When she left, she took that capability with her. The market valued her expertise at $8 billion, the difference in market caps. Consolidated Trust lost it. Vertex Finance gained it. Nathan valued it at 0. The market disagreed. Conclusively, that's not revenge, that's vindication. Objective, measurable proof that expertise matters, experience matters, institutional knowledge matters. My team at Vertex Finance is now 47 people. All could get recruited elsewhere. Many get offers regularly. Retention rate, 94%. People stay because they're valued. We pay well, provide equity, offer flexibility. But more than that, we offer respect, recognition, voice, the things that make work meaningful. When someone identifies a problem, we listen, proposes a solution, we evaluate it seriously, achieves excellence, we celebrate publicly. It sounds basic. It should be basic, but it's rare enough that we've built competitive advantage around it. The best developers in banking technology want to work here, not just for pay, for our reputation of valuing people properly. That reputation started when I walked out of that conference room. Industry people noticed. Stories spread. Nathan's "Code Monkey" comment became infamous, used as an example of catastrophically bad management. Business schools teach it as a case study in talent mismanagement. Consolidated Trust's collapse gets analyzed in MBA programs and leadership seminars. Same conclusion. Dismissing expertise has consequences, but case studies miss the human element. The feeling of 15 years reduced to nothing, the sting of public humiliation, the moment you decide enough is enough. That transformation is what the Payback Office channel represents. Not revenge, transformation. From accepting disrespect to demanding it. From hoping employers value you to knowing your value regardless. I could have stayed, endured Nathan. Kept my head down, collected paychecks. Many people do, and that's valid. Everyone's circumstances differ. But I had options. 15 years of excellent work built my reputation. My expertise was valuable. I could leave, so I did. That's privilege, and I recognize it. Not everyone can walk away. Financial obligations, family circumstances, market conditions, lots of factors make staying necessary. But for those with options, staying somewhere that doesn't value them out of inertia or fear, this story is permission. Permission to recognize that loyalty to disloyal organizations is misplaced. Permission to bet on yourself. The day I resigned, I was terrified. 15 years of stability gone. What if Vertex Finance didn't work out? What if I'd made a horrible mistake? But staying would have been the mistake. Staying meant accepting my dedication meant nothing. That expertise didn't matter. Leaving meant betting my skills had value. That someone would recognize and treat that value appropriately. Vertex Finance proved that bet correct. 5 years later, we serve 11 million customers, process 42 billion in monthly transactions, never been breached. I've mentored 53 developers, 7 promoted to senior positions, 2 started their own companies using approaches learned here. Catherine and I serve on the board together, discussing acquisitions. Companies with good customer bases but weak technology. We bring them into our ecosystem, upgrade their infrastructure, give customers better service. The opposite of consolidated trust. Instead of being acquired due to technological failure, we acquire others due to technological strength. Banking publications run articles about our rise. They always mention my history. 15 years at Consolidated Trust, dramatic departure, their collapse. Journalists reach out to Nathan for comment. He declines every interview. His decisions are permanent record now. I've never spoken publicly about him specifically. When asked, I redirect to broader issues. Management culture, respect for expertise, institutional knowledge importance. But it was personal, still is. Just a code monkey is burned into memory, still stings 5 years later. The difference, it doesn't define me anymore. For a while, I replayed that moment constantly, what I should have said, how I should have responded. Anger, humiliation, hurt swirling together. Time and success created distance. Now I mostly feel grateful. Grateful it happened when I had options. Grateful it pushed me towards something better. My parents are proud. My father, who fixed neighbors' cars, sees his daughter on magazine covers. My mother, who taught neighborhood piano, watches me keynote conferences. They're both retired and comfortable now. I made sure of that. They taught me empathy, how to see people behind systems. That lesson shaped everything I built. Because infrastructure serves people. Banking systems aren't abstract. They're how someone pays rent, receives paychecks, saves for retirement. When systems fail, real people suffer. My mentees understand this. Technology has human consequences. Build thoughtfully, test thoroughly, document carefully. That philosophy embeds Vertex Finance's culture. We're building trust. Every smooth transaction, every instant login, every security layer protecting data. Trust translated into code. When culture aligns around shared values, remarkable things happen. Our development speed, twice industry average. Bug rate, 1/5 industry average. Customer satisfaction, highest in sector. That happens when people are valued, respected, and empowered. For anyone currently undervalued or disrespected, build options. Quietly, carefully, consistently, network, update skills, document achievements. Then when your moment comes, and it probably will, you can choose. Stay or leave, accept or reject. I chose to leave, best professional decision I ever made. The Payback Office channel shares these stories as roadmaps for recognizing disrespect, building options, making choices. Understanding your value isn't determined by people who don't understand what you bring. 15 years of dedication. One moment of public disrespect. One resignation. One company's collapse. One company's rise. Clear consequences, clear outcomes, clear lessons. How organizations treat people determines outcomes. Treat people well, create conditions for excellence. Treat them poorly, create conditions for failure. Catherine Wu provides that leadership at Vertex Finance. Nathan Cross didn't at Consolidated Trust. The market delivered its verdict. $8 billion worth. 5 years later, I'm still building, still mentoring, still pushing banking technology forward, working with people who value what I bring. Bad moments can create good outcomes. Painful experiences can generate growth. Professional setbacks can enable advancement. Margaret Holloway walked out, signed with Vertex Finance, built something better, created value, demonstrated expertise, proved worth. This isn't about code. It's about knowing your worth, finding people who recognize it, and building something excellent together. If this resonates, if you believe workplaces should value people properly, consider subscribing. We're building a community around these principles. Real stories, real consequences, real lessons about respect, value, and professional dignity. We're heading towards 6,000 subscribers who understand that some people aren't as replaceable as management thinks. That expertise has value. That respect matters.